I'm feeling old lately. Old and out of focus. Do I need something new in my life? Or perhaps something old? We should play some old PC games from back when PC games were awesome. Back when PC games used to make me utterly giddy with enthusiasm. Back before it was mainstream and everybody was doing it. And we PC gaming nerds were the ultimate breed of manliness. Back when there were no set-in-stone, cookie-cutter genres, and great game design was to experiment and do something completely unique. It was an unexplored frontier, a limitless conjuration of your deepest imaginings, so long as you could fit them in about 37 pixels and squeeze them onto one or two floppy disks. Now obviously, before we can play any of these games, we're going to need to build a computer to play them on. So won't you please join me on my quest to build my ultimate retro gaming PC. Now I think most of you out there will enjoy this machine, but there's going to be those of you out there who absolutely hate it, I'm sure. Can't play Wing Commander. Seriously though, I'd love to have a 386, I just don't have the room to be running multiple retro machines at the same time, so I want to build one that'll do just about everything I need it to do, and for everything else there's always DOSBox. Of course, we could play just about everything in DOSBox, but DOSBox doesn't capture the feeling you get from sitting at real hardware. There's a certain essence to the whole thing that just gets lost in translation with emulation. Not to mention I want to play Windows 95 and 98 titles that are frankly just a huge pain in the butt to get running properly or at all in Windows 10. So with all that said, let's get to the build. Let's go over all the parts and then put it together and hope like hell it doesn't explode, which, knowing me, it probably will. And up first is certainly the star of the show. It's the Pentium III-S 1.4 GHz Tualatin. This is by far the fastest Pentium 3 ever released. Built on the 130 nanometer process, this was an extremely late entry into the Pentium 3 lineup, first releasing in early 2002. And this CPU would smack the pants off of an equivalently clocked Willamette Pentium 4 while consuming barely half of the power. What were you thinking, Intel? Now at this time you could have gotten a 2.2 GHz Northwood Pentium 4, which was definitely when the Pentium 4 started coming into its own. It would pull a good bit ahead of the 1.4 GHz Pentium III-S, but getting a socket 478 board with ISA slots for sound cards that want to play fair with DOS gets a little too complicated for me, and this CPU is more than fast enough for our purposes. That said, we need a socket for which to insert our CPU. Whatever will we choose? Well, I definitely wanted a socket 370 motherboard with an ISA slot, and they're actually getting pretty difficult to come by. Here we have a gift from the legendary internet keeper of all things retro, LickMatrix. You, sir, are a scholar and a gentleman. What is this in my hand? Why is the BIOS dated 2018? Huh? I doubt this is going to handle an i9 running Windows 10. That is odd. What we have here is a modern industrial clone of the Gigabyte 6VX C7. And when I say clone, I mean it's a complete ripoff, and I have no idea where this came from. But he got it, and I got it, and we're going to use it, and that's about all there is to it. And look at this. They call themselves Banana Digital. And they send you their drivers on a blank CDR. That doesn't work. Mine does not work. Thankfully, the guys sent me a copy of the drivers, or I would have nothing to use with this board. An A+ indeed. And coming in next is the graphics card. This is a PNY Geforce 3. I'm fairly certain this is the base model using SD RAM and not the later TI 200 or 500. That would put this probably in the middle of those two performance-wise. Anyway, these cards introduce programmable pixel and vertex shaders, marking a fairly large leap ahead in GPU technology in its time. These are probably some of the best choices for a mixture of high-end Windows 98 performance while still maintaining strong driver compatibility. Only a true lunatic would use anything beyond these cards. Please rage in the comments below. Next up is the first sound card for use with our Windows era games. It's the well-loved Sound Blaster Live 5.1 model SB0100. Thank you very much Decoy Sports Game for sending this my way. This card actually has very good compatibility with MS-DOS, and it does support Sound Blaster MIDI and MPU 401 modes, but I'll be using an ISA card for those things. My primary reason for using this bad boy is EAX. I love EAX. There are those of you who hate it and claim it just sounds like excessive reverb added to the audio, but there are people like me who like our games to sound like we're listening to the world with our heads in a metal garbage can. And can't forget about a networking card. This is just a generic Realtek 10/100 Ethernet card. I may do some internet browsing, probably not, but I do keep my driver files and other assorted things for retro computers on a shared network drive. It's just a lot easier than doing flash drives or burning CDs. Not very exciting, yeah. This is super exciting though. It's a Seagate 80GB IDE drive. You can save things and stuff and stuff on there. I'm actually planning on possibly dual booting with Windows XP at some point, and I'm not sure if I should do that on the same drive or split it out across two drives because they're two different partition formats. Haven't really thought about that yet. Somebody think of it for me because I'm too lazy to find the answers. This next one is the big one, the ISA sound card. Honestly, I should probably go with like a Sound Blaster 16 with a genuine Yamaha OPL3 chip, but I found this Sound Blaster 32 model CT3600. This sound card contains the EMU 8000 synth chip. It also has a full 32 megabytes of 30-pin SIMs on it, so I can use some seriously gigantic sound fonts if I want to. Specifically, the Masterpiece sound font, which I just love the sound of. I will be playing most of my DOS games via Windows 98 rather than booting into DOS mode, unless I have to. This way, through Windows, I can use very large file sound fonts if I want to. I don't know if you can use large sound fonts in DOS mode. If you can, somebody please tell me how. I'm also not sure if this model has the hanging note bug, so with that said, it probably does, and that would suck. But with these cards, it's always some trade-offs. Ideally, I'd have an AW32 with no hanging note bug and genuine OPL. I'd also like to have $50 million and to fly through a unicorn la-la land with pigs, but that probably won't happen either. Moving right along, we have a heatsink. This is just a generic Masscool brand socket 370 heatsink I bought from eBay for like $5, if that. It's not very substantial, but for a chip that'll never go over 30 watts of power consumption, it's more than enough, especially since the motherboard we're using lacks any voltage controls for overclocking. One very important thing to note is that the later Tualatin CPUs have a heat spreader on top of the CPU die, which actually elevates the CPU much higher in the socket. These heatsinks were designed for the original chips with direct die cooling, so they may end up mounting way too tight and snapping the arms off of the heatsink retention bracket. So I've bent the metal arms just a little bit to loosen it up. This way the heatsink is snug enough so that it won't move around, but it's not so insanely tight that it's going to break the arms off. And we're getting close to the wire, but we still can't forget about the memory. I've got here 2 sticks of PC133 SD RAM. One is 256 megs and the other is 128 for a total of 384 megabytes. I'd like to bump it up to more if I dual boot with Windows XP, but this is all I had on hand and it should definitely be enough to get me started. And speaking of dual booting, I also have this brand new 250GB Maxtor Ultra 16 hard drive I could use if I wanted. I probably won't, but I can. Maybe I will later. You tell me. I could also use it in my PlayStation 2, but I don't know. Well, that's it for the parts, and we're ready to go. We just need something to stick all this crap in, and boy do I have a treat for you. Feast your eyes on the InWin IW-A500 ATX tower. This is the second case that InWin ever made, and they're still around and a very popular brand to this day. This thing is in pristine condition, minus one little bend to the side panel that probably happened in shipping. Hopefully I can fix that later. It's so perfect, so new, so clean. That floppy drive and DVD drive looked perfectly clean and white to my eyes, until I put them in this case. Now it's very obvious those suckers need some retro bright, huh? So let's have a look inside, and it's very computer case-like in there, wouldn't you say? Look at that, it even has a 25-year-old power supply, probably brand new, just waiting to explode at a moment's notice. Oh man, but you haven't seen the best part yet. Look at this. Why don't they do this with modern computer cases? This is awesome! You can take the motherboard backplane out of the case and build the entire thing without the case in your way. Then slide it right back in when you're done, plug it in, and boom, you have a computer. Wow. Thank you, Sir Lickmatrix, for this glorious gift. I will cherish it forever. So, what do you say we build this flippin' thing already? In the interest of not making this video 9 hours long, I'm gonna speed the building and installing Windows process up a bit. This is not a tutorial anyway, and I'm the last person in internet history you would want to be teaching you how to do things. People will get hurt, things will break. Do not try this at home, you have been warned. And with all that said, let's get this darn thing out of the way. What do you say? First things first, we install the I/O shield and then insert the motherboard onto the standoffs. Then we will proceed to screw it in at warp speed. Then we'll stick the graphics card into the AGP slot for graphics cards and... beep. Wait a minute, why would we use this card? Would a dog even eat this card? I think not. Good boy. Let's throw this thing in the garbage where it belongs. I've got something much better in store for this project. And just look at this shiny hunk of glory. Introducing the Gainward Geforce FX 5900 with 128 megabytes of 256-bit memory featuring DirectX 9.0, Pixel Shader 2.0 Plus, Vertex Shader 2.0 Plus, OpenGL, and 8-pixel pipelines for your maximum video gaming pleasure. Ooh, out of breath. And that should do the card justice. And once again, thank you to Lickmatrix, giver of all things that are gifts. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. And from there, we can stick the sound card into the hole in which sound cards go, as well as the network card into its respective slot. And on we go to the CPU installation and look at this CPU art in the RC circuit on the bottom. Religious connotations. Now we'll go ahead and stick the CPU into the socket, and can't forget the gooey, creamy, thermal compoundy stuff, and then we'll install the heatsink on top of all that, and we're good to go. Well, almost good to go. You can't forget to install the memory or it won't work. And now we're good to go. Just look at that thing. It is a work of art. My mom would be so proud of me if she had any idea what this thing was. And I did leave the AW32 out, but that's because that card is gigantic and has the memory sticks on it, and I don't want to risk sliding that into the case. I may break them off. No big deal. We're also going to need to swap the power supply because the one that is in here is definitely not enough to power an FX 5900. So I'm going to be using this crappy old Rosewill 500 watt power supply. I used to have this in a Core 2 quad machine powering a GTX 460, so that'll surely be enough for this. And let's go ahead and screw in the power supply, because I'm sure you're just dying to watch me screw things in. Also, I'm a little concerned about the video card getting hot with no air, so I bought this 80mm fan to install in the front of the case. That should cool things down quite a bit. And now let's install the hard drive in the place where hard drives go. Let's put the motherboard tray back into the case where it belongs, and look at that, it fits like a glove. And this is the part where I do the wiring. As you can see, the case has metal reinforcement, making it impossible to record, and I don't know why you would want to watch me do wiring anyway. So we are going to zip right through this part at warp speed. If only wiring could go this quickly in real life. At last, we have a hopefully functional computer. Now it's time to bring out the peripherals. I seem to have left my speakers in storage, so I'm gonna use this HP piece of crap monitor because it has built-in speakers. I'm kidding, it's not actually that bad, but I wanted to do 1600 by 1200 and this doesn't support it. So that'll be an upgrade for another time, or perhaps later in this video. I'm not sure yet. Stay tuned. And for a keyboard, we're going to be using the glorious Dell AT101 W. This is a mechanical keyboard with clicky Alp switches. Thank you so much, Decoy Sports Game, for this gift. It's so loud, so clicky. Should keep the neighbors awake at night. Moving right along, we have a generic piece of crap USB mouse that I found on the floor because I just don't know where any other mice are right now. I'll sort that out later as well. And yes, it's finally done, finally ready to be used. Let's power this thing on and give her a smoke test. And... oh, man. What a Many swears were sworn in the making of this video. The end. Yeah, somebody plugged only 3 of the 4 pins into the floppy connector, clearly creating a glorious 5 or 12 volt short which started fiery fires. But fear not, for our saboteur failed to put a stop to my retro ambitions. All is well after rubbing salty tears on the burnt PCB traces. And now that that's hopefully taken care of, let's try smoke test number 2. And... Dude, this thing went from on fire to working perfectly. I think it's safe to assume that I'm the best computer builder in the world. And now to install the lovely Sound Blaster 32. With the sound card installed, I'm just going to clean up the desk as good as I possibly can. It's kind of impossible to do wire management on a glass desk, but I'll try my best. After that, let's get Windows installed and play some games. Now to do a full format on the new partition on an 80 gig hard drive. This will take a little while. That actually took about 2 hours. Surprisingly though, the install of Windows 98 is extremely quick. You could probably install Windows 98 to a regular hard drive far faster than you can install Windows 10 to a modern SSD. And we are on the desktop. The payoff after all of that work at last. And what do you know, I immediately notice something is wrong. Every few key presses, the computer just locks up for a few seconds. I can't figure out why. It works fine in the BIOS and it works fine in DOS mode. It only happens in Windows. I don't get it. I tried another keyboard. I tried running Prime 95. I tried running memtest and the machine is stable. I reformatted. I reinstalled Windows twice, once using a different disk, and the problem still persisted. I tried stripping everything out of the computer except one stick of RAM and another video card, and it still did it. Finally, on a whim, I decided to try yet another keyboard from a Sony Vaio I have sitting in the closet, and it worked. It worked perfectly fine. I have no idea why this happened. Somebody please explain it to me. It's very unfortunate too because the Dell has the nice ALP switches that I wanted to use. The Sony is just a cheap rubber dome, but it's the only thing that works, so I'm gonna use it. I also took that opportunity to hook up a brand new TrueMouse 3-button serial ball mouse that I had in storage. I totally forgot about that. And as you can see, I made a complete bomb of all the wiring. That's what I get for doing wire ties before testing to verify everything works. And lastly, I totally forgot to install a CD audio connector, which would be pretty important if I want to play games like Quake or probably Phantasmagoria that have the audio on the CD. To my surprise, the DVD drive had the connector. I didn't think it would, and I use that because I don't have any other CD-ROMs on hand. And now let's tidy up and pray to the gods of computers that I have no more problems with this build. After many hours of work and troubleshooting, it's finally time to set up the drivers and get this thing going. I'm starting with the VIA 4-in-1 Service Pack version 4.43. I believe this is the version that was included on the non-working banana disk. Next up are the audio drivers for the Sound Blaster Live 5.1. I'm using the VXD drivers that I took from philscomputerlab.com. According to him, they work faster than the WDM drivers, so I'm gonna go with them. For graphics drivers, we're going to be using NVIDIA's GeForce version 56.64. This was kind of a tough decision because there's a lot of disagreement online about which driver version to go with for Windows 98, especially for later cards like this one, and this driver version seems to be very popular online, so I figure this will be a good starting point to just get the system running. Maybe later on I'll upgrade to a later driver if there's better performance from it. Last but not least, I'm installing the Windows 98 unofficial Service Pack 3. Chose a few random things, primarily wanted the NTFS driver. This way if I do install Windows XP, I'll still be able to look through the files I have on that partition. And the system will be up to date. Well, as up to date as you can get an OS that was abandoned nearly 25 years ago, but that's pretty up to date. What could possibly go wrong? Especially when you have a custom-made Grumpy Tomato desktop wallpaper. Museums have offered millions for my Paint.exe art before, but I don't want to sell out. Let's reboot this thing one last time, and then it's finally time to play with Windows 98 and install some games. Welcome to the exciting new world of Windows 98. I think I would like to discover Windows 98. Thank you very much. Press the corresponding number on your keyboard to blah blah blah.
Welcome to Computer Essentials, a hands-on introduction to your computer. Press the right arrow key on your keyboard to continue.
Yes, sir, I think I will.
On the left part of your screen is a list of topics you will learn about.
I'm ready to learn, 90s computer man.
If you want to review the material in the previous screen, press the left arrow key on your keyboard to go back.
Oakley diddly dokley.
When you're ready to exit Computer Essentials and return to the Discover Windows 98 content screen, press the up arrow on your keyboard.
Using the number keys directly above the letter keys and below the function keys on your keyboard, press the corresponding number. In the 90s, we needed teachers to tell us where the number keys were.
Your computer is comprised of two main parts, hardware and software.
I just taught my viewers all about hardware, thank you.
The instructions that tell your computer what to do are called
A script
software.
error. Thank you, Bill Gates, for getting me very ready for Windows 98. Everything you do will crash. Get used to it, people of the future. Okay, well, bite me, Bill Gates. It's time to install some games. What are you laughing at? Diablo. I love Diablo. I wasted the majority of my childhood on Diablo 1 and Diablo 2. I believe I originally played this game on a 486, so it's no surprise to see it running so nicely here. Run away, now you dirty bastards. I wasn't able to get this working online. I downloaded the official patch from the Blizzard website and installed it, but when you open the game and try to connect to Battle.net, it tries to download yet another patch, and that one would keep failing. If anybody knows how to get this game to work online in Windows 98, please let me know, because I'd love to play it. Let's move on to Half-Life. Half-Life. This game was Valve and Lord Gaben's gift to mankind. They took the Quake engine and just turned it to something incredible with Gold Source, and today's Source. Counter-Strike still runs on the Source engine, and I don't think any game engine has ever matched Source in terms of just how good the physics feel. I have spent thousands of hours of my life surfing and bunny hopping in Counter-Strike and Half-Life games. Now, I originally played this game on a K6-2 350 MHz, and it ran nice, or what was nice at the time, which was probably about 15 FPS. I want to play it at 60 FPS, so this was a big reason in me wanting to do the Tualatin build. And it appears to be handling the game very nicely.
Morning, Mr. Freeman.
Hiya.
Looks like you're running late.
Only about 22 years. I thought something was wrong. I forgot to turn EAX on, didn't I? Metal trash can helmet has been applied. Echoey.
Hey, Mr. Freeman. I had a bunch of messages for you, but we had a system crash about 20 minutes ago, and I'm still trying to find my files. Just one of those days, I guess.
Oh, that's no excuse. My computer caught fire.
But I think that's all straightened out. They told me to make sure you headed down there as soon as you got into your hazard suit.
Is EAX on? He doesn't sound as echoey as I remember.
Please, leave me alone until after the experiment.
What a jerk.
Weren't you supposed to be in the test chamber half an hour ago? Ah, hello, Gordon Freeman. It's good to see you. My God, what are you doing?
You people have horrible, unwelcoming attitudes, and I'm just taking revenge. Wow, it is difficult to bunny hop on a mouse with no scroll wheel. Can't do it with a spacebar. Power up! Okay, well I won't make you sit through 50 hours of Half-Life, even though I gladly would. I just want to see the Resonance Cascade scene because this is definitely the slowest part of the entire game. If your system can handle this part, it will handle the entire game, no problem. Minus that one little hitch there, we're getting a solid 75 FPS. I don't know if you can see the net graph in the bottom right corner of the screen. I probably should have installed Fraps. I'll do that next time. It's so trippy. It's weird, everybody hated the Zen aspect of this game, but I always thought it was crazy. Okay, I'll wrap up Half-Life. I just love this game so much. Oh, hey, how's it going, guys? Sorry!
Gordon, man, am I glad to see you.
Ow!
What the hell?
If you were glad to see me, then why'd you shoot me, jerk? Yeah, give me your gun. Bughead. Now, I installed a metric butt-ton of games, but I don't want to bore you with those by making this video 9 hours long. I will do separate videos on games that I like, or perhaps games that you want to see running on this thing. As you can see, I did upgrade to a new monitor now, though. This is a Sony SDM S204, 20.1-inch 1600 by 1200 monitor. The last thing I want to do in this video is install the drivers for the Sound Blaster 32, because we haven't actually used that yet. I just want to see if the EMU 8000 is as good as I remember and dance around to that masterpiece sound font. Before that, I just want to put it on the basic Sound Blaster audio so I can hear the OPL3. That sounds good to me. I'd have to compare this to a real OPL chip because I really can't tell the difference offhand. This sounds exactly how I remember. Enough of this OPL crap. Let's switch off to the masterpiece sound font. Now, I know a lot of you are probably thinking, what about an MT32 or an SC55? Yeah, those are cool. The SC55 in this game sounds amazing, but when I was a kid, I had an AW32. It's what we could afford. So Doom just sounds right to me on an AW32. Maybe someday I'll own an SC55, but today is not that day. Oh man, let's go. AW32 with a 32 meg sound font on it. Childhood goals complete. Yes! My inner child is pouring out of my eyeballs right now. Oh man, this sounds good. I am now going to proceed to beat this entire game, probably 5 times in a row. I won't make you suffer through it, so I think we will call it a day here. For those of you that were crazy enough to sit through this entire half hour, I thank you very much for watching, though you may need to have your head examined. I had a whole bunch of fun building this computer and making this video and just getting to relive these old games. I will be back with more.
Let me guess. You were robbed and dressed in those ridiculous clothes.
Screw you, buddy.
This is going to be fun. You're mine.
No, I'm not. For those of you who made it to the end, this is me, and I'd like to thank you for watching.
In my day, we played Wing Commander on a 386 while climbing a mountain in a blizzard with 300-pound rail spikes impaling us through the back. You young whippersnappers don't know how easy you have it.